Linus here from Pantheon Plus, and we're doing our Warrior Roundtable tonight. But what's really cool, well, we do miss Hayah. Let's make sure we do say that. Hayah's had some stuff going on and wasn't able to record tonight. And actually super excited. We got Militus up there.
From and I am no Hayah. I'm no Hayah. So I'm going to bring it, but I can't bring it like him. But I'll fill in, brother, to the best of my ability. I'm excited to talk some Warrior tonight.
I mean, could you imagine if it just so happened that this was the cleric video? I mean, I would. It would have been.
You would lose viewers because I would go so crazy talking.
Probably game viewers.
Cleric. Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you for filling in tonight. Looking forward to do a lot more collaboration type stuff, and really excited to jump into this with you. So anybody who's watched our videos before, you know, it's we're just going to rant about this. We're going to use experience in what we've done before, and we are just going to talk about being a warrior. So these videos typically last about a half hour, so that's probably around where we'll be unless we rant more, then deal with it. So so let's go ahead right where we normally start, Militus. We talk about the available races. And last week we did Paladin, and we complained that there were only 2. And this week we have 8 of the 9 available. So,
and I can relate as a cleric to only having 2 as well. And
3.
That was the very first thing that struck me when I pulled this page up was like, wow. I mean, warriors are very popular classes in MMO, so it doesn't shock me that there would be a lot of races, but they have a lot of options here.
Yeah, I mean, typically warriors is usually in every race, and this is pretty close, but no gnomes. Man, like my whole existence of MMOs was seeing a gnome warrior up there tanking, calling him a giant slayer from back in my EQ days, and there's no gnome warrior. It's pretty interesting.
I wonder if that's got something to do with, I remember when, kind of relate this to WoW, I remember when gnome warriors, they've been around for a long time, there was a lot of problems with like weapon size and their models. You remember that back in the day? And I wonder if that's what VR's thinking, like,
I don't know.
8 out of the 9, but we don't want to deal with that.
And they're glowy, and how's that going to affect the weapons?
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like we have pretty much everything for this class. And again, like you said, it sort of makes sense. Warrior's kind of the jack of all trades. So, so the class obviously is a tank with utility, and that's going to fall right in line with the first tank we covered, which was the Dire Lord, right into the Paladin, and now the final tank, the Warrior. So this one uses similar to how the Paladin worked, where it had 2 different resources to manage. You're going to have 2 different resources here as well with battle points and resilience. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of what those are. Yeah. So battle points, they're basically 5 points that a warrior can accumulate. And you'll see them on the screen as 5 shields. And essentially they're going to be used for heroic feats. So the battle points are pretty similar to the Paladin's abilities, where they'll have stronger abilities you'll be able to use those battle points for, so save them up for those big moments. I mean, that's kind of strange that when I went to the Paladin and it was unique, now it's kind of the same thing.
I like it because it's not the warriors I've played in all other MMOs. This reminds me of, well, like the rogue points, druid, builders, these kind of things. So I like that, actually. I'm so accustomed to a building rage or bloodlust or something like that on a bar. I think I would like this better. Building these battle points. I think this is new, something fun for me.
Yeah, and they're going to be pretty specific to like really strong abilities, I guess. And we'll get into more of them down below. But you still do have that resilience, which so I'll read a little bit about what that is. So when all of the warriors' armor, natural toughness, and magic enhancements have been applied, resilience is the final layer that sits on top. So that's pretty interesting if you think about how mitigation works. The warrior has an extra level of mitigation, and that's in their resource management, which is pretty cool. Because the other ones, Paladins and Dyros, are not going to have that extra layer of mitigation, which is pretty interesting. And what is going to happen here is, you can... I'm trying to just read this. So it just gives you more physical diet.
To me, with the resilience added to it, like and I've heard the developers talk about this before too, Minus, is like this class, in terms of tanks, in my mind, is the cleric of healers. Does that make sense? It's like
straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, and two, I don't want to get people mad.
I'm going to put a little counter in the corner. That was, I think, our third cleric mention.
Yeah, there will be more. If people are drinking every time they hear me say cleric,
drink when you hear cleric.
But the cleric is like probably the most pure, if you will, of the three healers. Not to say that the other ones aren't great, but to me, the warrior is the more pure tank, and the resilience in my mind is what makes it that, because it says in the heart of battle, it's unrivaled in the raw physical durability, unrivaled.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and what's interesting is the last line there you see too is resilience is not a resource that you spend. Mm-hmm. So while you're managing 2 resources, you're only spending battle points. So that does make it a little different than the paladin, where you're not spending 2 different resources. So with warriors, you're just trying to keep your resilience up. And if you have it up, it's like that extra layer of defense. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I like that too. So, because imagine if you had to build and spend both those resources.
Yeah,
that would be pretty
It'd be a little much. Yeah.
Especially with taunting and trying to lead the group and manage aggro, that would be a lot to deal with at one time. Yeah.
And I'm sure when we look through these abilities, we'll see, there's probably things that generate resilience and probably, stuff that's obviously going to spend your battle points. So jumping down to the next thing here, it's easy to talk about warriors. Pretty much all the classes can be, or races can be them except for gnome. And then when you're looking at their armor and weapons, they use pretty much everything.
Sure. But the plate mail is what you want as a warrior.
Yeah, which is interesting because a Dire Lord doesn't wear plate mail. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out for that class with the life gain. So
yeah, especially when we start getting in the numbers where we look at the armor points and how they contribute to mitigation, resistance, things like that, because I'm guessing there's got to be some values there on those item pieces. I've not been able to get a good look at some of the gameplay videos to look at that just yet, but I'm sure that's going to contribute to your overall survivability as a tank.
Oh yeah. So. And it says here too that warriors can gain an additional 20% bonus to armor. So you're talking about a class that's stacked up on armor. Is stacked up with the resilience and the natural toughness and the magical enhancements. I mean, this tank should be an absolute beast. And like you said, sort of like the cleric brute force classic style healer, this definitely, as you were saying before, feels like that same, like a mirror image of a tank.
No doubt.
And it does note here why you can use all kinds of weapons. Your tanking abilities do, a lot of them are going to require shields. So
I don't know how you would play. I was looking over the abilities before, and I'm looking at all the cool shield abilities. I'm thinking, no, you must have shield before you're like that.
That's like when we were looking at Paladin, they're able to use a 2-hander, and as cool as that is, like, nah, I need a shield. So, okay, so that kind of talks about the races, how the combat resources are going to work. So let's jump right into the abilities, and I'm just going to kind of go down through these, and then I'll pause and we can kind of wrap up a couple of them at a time, just to save a little bit of time so we're not here all night. But so the featured abilities, the first one here is Warhorn. You sound an ominous war horn, either inflicting fear on your enemies or inciting them to face you in battle. So, interesting. It has a double effect.
Right. I wonder how that, like, what condition dictates what's going to happen. You know what I mean? I guess maybe directionality of the way you blow the horn?
Yeah, it could also be, I'm wondering if, so some of the things you'll see down below without cheating is that you'll see some of like formations and banners and battle cries. Maybe they have an effect on it. Or this might be a generic ability that has 2 different versions of it. One's a taunt and one's a fear. So it'd be kind of interesting. It's always a little rough when we're looking through these because we are guessing on some of it.
Yeah.
And I would say they're educated guesses.
Yeah.
So cool. Warhorn is a fear or a taunt. The will to live. Your will to live surges forth, increasing your dodge and parry chance, granting a bonus to healing effects cast on you, and locking your resilience to full. Locking, not lockering, that's not even a word. To full for the duration of the effect, 1 battle point. So big cooldown.
Oh, no doubt. And as a healer, this makes me very happy, right? Because the bonus to healing effects you get cast on you, man, that's a great cooldown. I wonder how long that cooldown will be.
I know. Doesn't that kind of stuff drive you crazy?
It does. I hope it's like relatively short, like
10, 15 seconds. 15 seconds might even be too
much. Where you can
like
keep it in your rotation pretty consistently because, man, as a healer, that's That's
It's a really
amazing.
good cooldown. It kind of reminds me of like the 3-minute cooldowns you'd see in WoW. Like
And only one battle point.
Yeah.
So if you generate a battle point right away, bam, kick
Yep.
the will to live right off, and you're
So,
already setting your
and I'm
healer up.
wondering like how, so what, and again, we're going to get into a bunch of what if questions we're not going to be able to answer, but how quick are battle points going to regenerate? And the abilities themselves are probably on a type of a cooldown. It would be really cool if the battle points were super slow to come back, but your abilities had a lesser cooldown, which means in a really chaotic time, you could throw out 2 or 3 back-to-back will to lives if you had your battle points stored up. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But it's a really nice cooldown because it will help with everything. Even though it doesn't say anything about magic resistance, the fact that your resilience will be higher and you're getting better healing, it will seemingly help with everything and be even really stronger against melee.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. All right, next one here is a passive ability, Resilient Leader. A portion of your resilience is restored when you receive healing from a member of your group. Synergy.
Your man, right? So you want that healer, you want that cleric, druid, or shaman with you. Yep. to help you with that. That's awesome. So when they heal you, a portion of your resilience is restored. That's awesome. Yeah.
I'm wondering how big this meter is because there's if you're getting healed a lot, you would think that meter is going to stay pretty high. Because we're going to see more as we go through here. But the next one here
maybe the longer the fight too. Yeah. I wonder if it takes a while for that resilience meter to really,
you build it up during the beginning of the fight and then towards the end, your house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe. The next one here is Storm. You charge at your enemy with furious speed, stunning them briefly, only usable out of combat. Very similar to a warrior's charge, but with the stun on there. And am I crazy to say back in the day there was a warrior charge with stun?
I thought so. Yeah, I'm thinking in WoW there certainly was.
Yeah, and I don't think it was. I don't think it was a protection warrior. I think it might have been arms or fury.
Yeah,
I could totally be making that up.
I loved it. I could zip around the map just stunning mobs and. Yeah, pulling lots of stuff. That's great. I mean, for pulls and for managing dungeons, I think that's great to be able to kind of zip across and especially let's say someone got aggro in the group. Well, I said out of combat, so you couldn't use it in that situation, could you?
You charge it. I think it's only usable out of combat. Yeah, so that's a pull.
Yeah.
Now that might mean you're out of combat. It might not necessarily mean your group. So if someone in your group pulls and you by accident, you might still be able to get that charge off until you're engaged. Yeah. And it does generate an instant battle point. So
that's like an opener right away.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm going to pull with because I want to generate the battle point right away so I can begin to kind of build my resilience. And if I had to pop the will to live, I could have it available immediately.
That's a good, if you're pulling a difficult pack where you're going to have to hold some stuff for a short period of time while you get CC or there's no way of breaking it just with your group dynamic, you may charge in, hit your will to live, get everybody ready to CC, back the mob away, and then you're ready to go. So
I'm thinking if you have like a halfling bard with you that was a little slow, which at times they can be. So you just charge in.
I see what you're doing.
Stun, you turn around, you look to the bard or the enchanter like, can you please?
He's having a beer. You're supposed to be helping us. Give me a second to finish this beer. So cool. So the next one, close the gap. So interesting. There's a lot of abilities. So for those that don't know and may look at this that played WoW and they're seeing some of these abilities. So Storm sort of like charge. The close the gap is a lot like your heroic leap. So you leap to an enemy. Keep in mind that these abilities were really founded within D&D. And these are branched abilities that WoW took from D&D. So it's not like this game's trying to copy WoW. These are warrior things. In almost any... I mean, like you kind of said, warrior is the kind of... If you make a game, you know how to make warrior.
Minus, if it works,
keep
it. Like I don't see what the big problem is. If it's a great ability, and I played warrior in WoW, and that is so much fun. That's maybe one of my most enjoyable abilities.
There was a legendary in Legion that let you have 1 or 2 extra heroic leaps. Oh my gosh.
I watched them bounce across the map. I never had it, but I watched them bounce around like bunnies around the map.
Oh yeah. So that one is usable in combat. So you have Storm out of combat with the stun and then the leap in combat. So, and they both generate a battle point. So that's interesting. You could charge in, stun one, leap at another one, and you're at 2 battle points at the beginning of the fight. So that's
nice.
It's a nice little.
And I would keep those key binds. Like I use a gaming mouse. So I would keep those keybinds like for muscle memory pretty close to each other, so that if I'm in combat, I know I can use one, and if I'm out, I can use the other. And
you can't see because I'm not in Discord with you because I'm capping on OBS here, but I'm holding up. I have a Tataris, one of the left-hand keyboards. So that's where I can't. It's funny, I can't use a keyboard because I miss buttons a lot. So I have one of those.
The Naga is a little too small for me. This is a G600.
I switched from that to, and it's funny, we're showing each other stuff. He can't see what I'm showing, but I can. So I switched to the Corsair one. Okay. So I have that one and the Corsair. Now everybody's like, we're getting a little bit of inside our gaming routine here. I love it. Okay, so the last of the abilities before we jump into some pretty cool like thematic skill sets here is battering ram. You summon an immense physical strength and rush forward, breaking through certain barriers in the environment that have grown weak.
That's nuts.
And unstable. The higher your strength, the more type of barriers you can break through.
Barriers.
So, a lot of them have talked about extreme weather. I'm wondering if in very wintry areas there's ice that's been formed or something like that you can shatter through. I can't see you going into the keep that they've shown in a lot of the videos, just going through a wall. But it's pretty interesting that you're able to break through environment, which is I don't know how much you've looked into Druid, but Druid has some cool abilities where they can make a bridge out of stuff, right?
I have. Yeah, so, the Druids have been luring me away, but I'll stop there. I was thinking about the keep. There's no one. Well, you could say, you could imagine that maybe part of the keep has a weak point that like has hit points, and you have to like knock it down to get in,
or like maybe a certain door somewhere.
But the warrior can just go bam, just battle ram right through the damn thing.
What's really cool is that they talk about this higher the strength, and getting way off topic here, but the higher your strength. So if you're in a low level dungeon, what if they hide some kind of special event area behind something where you need more strength to get through that? So you're a higher level and you go back into that dungeon and you take a different path that all of a sudden is higher, because they've talked a lot about having content that is different levels within the same area. You're gonna have different level groups in the keep, for example.
So like on different tiers of the dungeon. I love that idea, and that would cause groups. Let's say you're up on the second or third level, but there's a secret entrance on the first level where there's only like level 14 and you're level 30. You just walk right down there and blast through the
You played door. BFA, right?
I did. Yeah.
So the prison with a rope.
Yeah, Told to Gore. Yeah,
right, so you could go through the gates and skip a lot of that stuff right at the beginning, skip a lot of pulls.
That'd be cool.
It's an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing here I'm going to jump into is War Hero. So you rush to the location of a group member, rescue them from damage, transferring a portion of the enemy's current hate towards them onto you. If your charisma is above a certain threshold, the group member's actions will generate less hate. So it's kind of like an intercept with a little bit of hate transfer.
Like if your healer's trying to save your butt, warriors, and they end up getting hate, you might want to pop Warrior Hero, rush over to the cleric who's saving your tail.
Or that bard hanging out in the back having a beer.
Or the bard.
He accidentally sits down and gets sit aggro.
And you still generate a battle point by using that. To me, that's almost like a cooldown.
Yeah, it feels like we were kind of talking earlier. See, this is what's funny, and this is why I like doing this naturally. Some people have messaged myself or Hayah, like, why don't you guys prepare more for your videos? It's discovery. When you guys are watching this video with us, we want you to discover it with us. Everybody who's watching these has played an MMO for the most part. Some people with this may be their first, but I think you're going to see more seasoned MMO players playing this game. So it's kind of walking through it and understanding the way the developers think is pretty cool and kind of theorizing. So, we talked at the beginning about our battle points going to be hard to get. It doesn't look like it.
No.
I mean, you have 3 abilities right there that generate and only 1 that uses. So,
yeah, well, let's say 4 in the first grouping: the Will to Live, Storm.
Will to Live uses
close the gap.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, uses.
Yep,
You're right.
Uses one,
Yeah, uses. You're right. 3 to gain.
Only 1 use. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's interesting. So
3-to-1 ratio. I like that as a warrior. That sounds good.
Yeah, right. We're just gonna be using that Will to Live a lot. Okay, so this is where warriors get really cool. These are some really cool abilities, and I think this is a lot of class fantasy stuff. So for those that like to play a class that feels like its own special thing, here you go. We're going to jump into 3 categories here. I'm going to read the categories, which are battle formations, war banners, let's see here, and battle cries. So first of all, let's start in the battle formations. I'm going to read through all of them, and then we'll just kind of chat about them. So the warriors can command several battle formations to enhance their group in different situations. So not a stance. It's a group enhancement. So first is conquest. So when an enemy is in fleeing state, the conquest formation boosts all melee and spellcasting speed of your group.
And it uses burn them down before they run to others and pull more mobs into you.
Yep. Regroup. Usable when a member of your group dies. The regroup formation boosts your group's movement speed slightly and refreshes all of your cooldowns and your defensive target's cooldowns. So imagine your defensive target is the healer and they have already rezzed and somebody else dies. Now that res is wiped back out and you get your cooldowns back. So that's really cool as far as being able to throw it on another target in the group. Or you could, like, this sounds crazy and you're not going to do this probably, but let's just hypothetically talk because there is XP loss that's going to be in this game. But imagine you wanted to burn the end of a boss and somebody was almost dead. You might just say, die real quick. Just die. So and I'm going to buff this wizard like a son of a bitch. And they're going to have all their cooldowns back to just unleash hell. So, and that's, I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of the fun, tricky stuff groups that know each other well will do to get around things. So it's neat. And then the last one here is unyielding. So usable when you're active in combat with 3 or more enemies. The unyielding formation boosts the armor class of all group members and transfers X% of all damage taken by the group to the warrior. It also restores a portion of your resilience each time you slay an enemy.
Yeah, this is for the, not that in my mind there's going to be mass pulling like I've experienced in other MMOs recently where you pull 20 mobs and burn them down. I don't imagine that, so don't mistake this. But you have a large pull and you think you can nuke some of them down, that would be a great battle formation to take onto your group.
Or, one of the feeds I was watching was in the courtyard, and I'm forgetting her name. But there is a boss, and I think she's a mini boss, but she's walking around the courtyard. And a lot of the feeds, if you watch them, the big trouble is that the group's not moving quick enough to clear camps and keep them dead to get to her. And she keeps adding and killing them, like in almost all the videos. And in one video, they got her alone and they were killing her. And then the group that was killed by where they were respawned. If that happens and these come in, you hit that and you're like, get her down. Kill her before we die. We'll come back and get the loot. I wonder,
when combat starts, do you think that you can change your battle formation?
Well, they all take a battle point. So my guess is, and keep in mind, they're only usable. They're almost like... because like a stance you activate. These ones I feel like are you hit it when it's possible to use it, right? So it's almost like a battle shout in a sense, but they have battle cries. So, but it's kind of like a battle shout where it's a momentary buff because something happened. It's a reactionary. Hey,
you have that limited action set. It's the only thing in my mind. You have limited 12. That's the plan, I think.
Do you keep every battle formation on, or do you just stick with one that's important to you?
Or maybe just a couple. I would probably keep, as we go from pull to pull, I might keep the 2 that I'm most likely to use.
I could probably live without Conquest. Yeah, the Conquest one I could probably live without. If something starts running Mezit or
regroup and unyielding seems like they would be must, especially in large dungeons crawling around. Yeah,
unless you have a rogue and a bard and an enchanter, and you're just mezzing everything. All right, the next one here is war banners. So the warrior is capable of planting a variety of banners in the ground, providing a wide array of beneficial and detrimental effects for foes and enemies. So I'm going to read through these real quick. Challenger's banner. So everything here is going to do something for group, self, and enemies. So these are crazy.
It's complex.
Yeah. So the Challenger's banner. So the whole group increases resource regeneration rate for the melee classes. So it's important to note melee, you're not getting mana back. Self, it causes your resilience to replenish automatically at a rate determined by your constitution. So faster resilience replenishment. Enemies, your attacks generate additional hate on enemies. So Challenger's Banner you kind of throw down. It's to make sure you control maybe an AoE if you're multi-tanking multiple mobs and you're trying to save people. It's pretty good. If you're melee heavy, it's extraordinarily good. A rogue is going to benefit from that a ton, and it's also probably going to help like a paladin. If you have an off-tank paladin, that's going to help them as well.
And it's only one of 2 banners that directly impact self.
Yeah, good call. Yeah,
pointing that out too. So if you're needing a self buff, you're wanting that buff that comes along with the banner. There's only 2, and Challenger's one of them.
And when you talked about the only so many skills you can equip, that's an important thing too. So those greedy tanks, like we're just going with Challengers and Shieldmen, guys. The second one here is Banner of Arms. So group improves the chance to hit with melee attacks. And then for enemies, your enemies are less likely to dodge your group's melee attacks when in range of the banner. So that's interesting. You have 2 things affecting the same thing. It's almost like why?
It's like a burn. It's like a burn banner, basically. In my mind, like Challenger's banner, if I were tanking on a warrior, clearly that would be a banner I would use on a boss because of the resilience boost. Mm-hmm. But if we're just kind of moving through the lower level of the dungeon, trying to make our way up, and we're fighting mobs that are, let's say, we're level 25 and they're level 15, 18, I'm calling out Banner of Arms so we can just mow through it that much faster.
It's just interesting, though, that both, so you're more likely to hit them. So it's like getting, like back in the day in WoW, hit cap, which was miserable. But your hit cap goes up, but then they dodge less. So it's like a double boost to making sure you hit. Yeah. I mean, obviously, dodge is only one of an evasion techniques. There's dodge, there's block. So I get it. It's interesting. The next one is the last one with the self, as you were saying. So Shieldman's Banner. Self increases the damage reduction of your shield block ability, which we'll get into down in our melee abilities below. That's it. So that one's for you.
I know it's it, but like with specific boss mechanics, okay, where you're about to take an absolute ton of damage in short succession.
Yeah.
That Shieldman's Banner might be a very useful banner just to mitigate, to increase the damage reduction of that shield block ability. Because there might be such a blow, right, you're going to take that even a clearic, that's saying a lot, even a cleric might not be able to get you through. Let's say in other MMOs, there's a lot of mechanics where you have to taunt.
What was? Do you remember Mimiron?
Mimiron said, "Yeah."
Do you remember when he was in the tank? He would hit you with that crazy hard tank ability, and if tank didn't have tons of health, it just one shot them. Abilities like that, they're unavoidable, massive damage. That's going to help a lot. And to be honest with you, as a tank, I've always been a tank who wants to be as nearly indestructible as possible. The damage is okay, but if I'm making life easy on my healers, I am more into that than being the guy who's a tank on the top of the damage meters. So I could see myself, even though it only does one thing for me, I could see myself using that a majority of the time. I mean, I haven't read these other 3, but that's for now, that one there says this is going to pose the most comfort for my healer, and as a tank, that's usually the only person I care about. So
and group composition would make imagine you had a monk with you, for example, and in monks I've seen in streams, they said they can be in a pinch, they can be an off tank in a pinch. Mm-hmm. So imagine you had to split damage, right, and you have a monk in your group. Maybe you don't have to take Shieldman's Banner in that case, but let's say you don't. Let's say that you have some casters and an enchanter, wizard, and you don't have that other person to split the damage with.
Yeah,
that would be a must in a 6-person group if you didn't have someone else to serve as that off tank and
without it out. And like I said, I'm a little greedy of a tank, so I usually will do everything that makes me strong, so I can point my finger at everybody else and say it was their fault. No, I'm just kidding. Rallying Banner group, it reduces the duration of control effects afflicting members of your group. So situational, really situational. Enemies increase the duration of control. So maybe not situational. Increase the duration of control effects applied by your group on enemies. So bards and enchanters, like, hey, let's get that Rallying Banner down. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that little extra bit on Mez and how nice that would be?
Oh, very, very nice. Yep.
Especially when you look at mana consumption. And I know that we've seen the videos have sort of changed back and forth. They've changed some things on how it consumes, like your rate of regens. It's all kind of being worked on. But in the videos I've seen, enchanters do own pretty quick. They're sitting a lot. So that could be really nice to, even if every 4 times you cast a mez, you get one kind of free one by the extra time you've gotten is still useful.
That could be the difference in your group wiping or not.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Banner of Onslaught. I haven't read it yet, but it sounds awesome. Group improves the critical strike chance and damage from melee attacks. Your enemies become more vulnerable to physical damage. So man, if you're warriors with physical damage, right?
Yeah, that, and also if you got a rogue in the group, there's no question what they're asking you to break out. Like, you best be breaking out the Banner of Onslaught for me so I can do maximum damage.
I wonder, because when you look at the classes right now, as far as pure DPS, now I know that some off tanks will DPS a little bit. They're not going to be as good as DPS class. I'm very comfortable saying that. But does this mean, if you have a warrior tank, that ranger is more likely to come in and be a melee?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because they can do both. Apparently, I'm interested to see what the difference.
If you had 2 DPS in your group and one's a ranger and one's a rogue, I could see where you clearly would have
warrior tanks like, get in here.
You get in. This is going to benefit all 3 of us, but get in here right now. Yeah.
And then Banner of Havoc, your enemies are less likely to hit with range attack. So, which is nice. If you have a range enemy and you don't notice the threat goes away, they're going to try to hit somebody far out, like a healer or a CC'er. So that chance of them missing is probably pretty helpful as well, depending on what type of enemy you're fighting. If you're fighting a warrior, that's not something you're going to use. But if you're fighting a ranger or a caster, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, especially if you had a lot of ads with a boss or a pull that were casters. That would be really, really nice.
Yep.
Yeah, to drop.
So pretty cool. The war banners are neat. They're very thematic, and they definitely, what's interesting about this, since you only have 12 abilities, you could go into a section of a dungeon knowing what type you need, and then when you get into that next section, you swap it around. So that's because I think you're going to be able to have setups, which is pretty cool too. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It's just going to take time to mem them all and sit down and everything.
Yeah, but I find that refreshing, to be honest, though, minus, for a long time, in MMOs, I feel like the abilities have been just simplified. And as you said, take some time to memorize them. I like that. Like, give me some challenge to think about, situational use, awareness, complexity. Bring it on, Pantheon. Like, I love it.
So it's funny you bring that up, because in the chat last night, we had someone in there who was complaining about a few different Pantheon things. And one of the things he said is, it's going to really give you class fantasy and skill caps when you can only memorize 12 abilities. And I didn't respond because I could tell where he was just being frustrated. But I think so you have 2 options, right? I can have 12 of the abilities, and I have a lot of good abilities, and I need to customize how I'm going to play this fight. Or I could play WoW and have 7,000 abilities with different buffs and stuff to them and gear that buffs them up. And I mean, what's the difference between that?
And let's be honest, only cast 3 buttons.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah.
Right?
That's super true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was a warlock in Legion towards the end, just because I wasn't tanking, it was just dot everything up, hit it with a couple abilities, redot it, and I was top of the meters. So,
and 2, and not just WoW, but a lot of MMOs you're just thinking about you. The war banners force you to think about synergy, fight, enemies, and group setting. So I've always thought tanks, and I still believe this, it takes a special kind of person to play a tank. I think it takes natural born leaders and people that are quick on their feet and people that are just great players, I believe. And this is proof of that in my mind, because you look at that's a big decision on which war banner to drop. You have to take a lot of variables.
It's your group comp, what you're fighting. Yes.
Absolutely.
Is the mob a running mob? Do you have any experience with where you're at? It's interesting because I think an experienced warrior, and you can say this about anything, but particularly someone who's been in a dungeon a lot, is going to be able to say, hey, even if it's in general, hey, warrior, throw this banner down here because these mobs are all going to run. So it's just interesting that trial and error is going to help a lot with how a warrior fights. So
let me get into the downtime to talk about what went right and what went wrong, right?
Yes. So let's get into the battle cries here and jump into the melee abilities, and then we'll wrap it up. I don't want to go too long, but so battle cries: Howl of the Warrior. After performing a critical strike, you can unleash a booming howl that guarantees your next attack will be critical, and also cause your enemy to bleed. So it's going to play off the abilities down below, having an added effect. It grants a battle point.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So you're buffing yourself and getting a battle point. That's like a use on cooldown thing.
Definitely.
Rageful Shout. You unleash a rage-filled shout, allowing you to use taunt without a cooldown.
Wow.
That's really cool. I wonder if there's going to be diminishing return on taunt or not, but that's still, if you have multiple mobs.
And that's got to have a significant cooldown, I can imagine.
And it uses a battle point versus gaining one, so yeah.
But hey, I'd be happy to spend it in a pinch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to have that.
Can you imagine just being able to taunt? Okay, we're good. Berserker's Roar frees you from all loss of control effects and makes you immune to them for X duration. Yes, humans. Yeah. I was a human warrior. Last man standing for most things was amazing, and it is built into the warrior class. Thank you,
Pantheon. Tanks have to have that ability. Yeah. They do.
Yep. Cool. So that's kind of a look at the skill set. So let's just jump real quick. I'm going to read quickly through these melee abilities. They're very familiar, and they have almost the same names. That's what people are used to. So Taunt, we all know what that does. We've read about Taunt a little bit before. Shield Slam. So this is going to be an important ability. Your shield, slam a shield into your enemy, disorient them with a high chance of interrupting spell casting and a small chance of stunning. So you have a double effect of spell canceling or casting canceling, which is pretty neat. And the chances are increased based on your strength, dexterity, and shield mastery, which is until this, I've never heard of a attribute for shield mastery. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that generates a battle point. So
I can imagine storming in, smacking them in the face, stunning them, right?
Yep.
And then we start beating them down, and the moment they start to cast one of their abilities, bam, shield slam right to the face.
It's cool because it's built in. Right. Yeah. So in WoW, you had Shield Slam as a major ability, but at the same time, you then had to use it's like a kick. I can't remember what it was called, but you had your interrupt as well. So it was a separate ability. So having them together is pretty cool. Depending on the cooldown of it, or you're gonna have to, because it seems like an ability you want to use for damage reduction with somehow how it plays with other things. So it's gonna be interesting to see about having it as a ready ability, or are you gonna just be hitting it when it's up? Is it quick enough to come back that you're going to have it in crucial moments? That's something interesting about that.
I think with the small chance of stun, in my mind, I'm using that ability a lot for damage mitigation, but because the chance is small that you're going to get a stun, but there is a chance. So in my mind, I'm hitting them in the face with the shield a lot to try to get that stun off for sure.
Just right in the face.
Right in the face.
So shield block, you raise your shield up to meet your attackers, dramatically reducing the physical damage you receive for 2 seconds. This is the only ability in this entire thing I've ever done that has a time on it. It's the only one. This is the only one they decided to put a time on. So for 2 seconds, and you convert X of the damage, percent of it into resilience, which is cool. So it not only probably reduces the damage you take, but it actually helps you with further stuff. And I love when noises on my computer happen when I'm recording. If timed correctly, you will reduce the damage of an enemy's devastating attack by up to 50% of your strength. So you get a big reduction. Yep.
If timed correctly.
Well, you only have 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So you got to know it's coming. Or you're going to be so low health that you're like, well, I'm hitting it because I'm going to die if I don't hit it. So, and that uses 2 battle points.
That's a lot. Yeah. So that's high risk, high reward, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And 2, I'm thinking like what everything with Militus is always the frame of a healer. I'm sorry, but like Disc Priest in WoW, which is what I would play often. That class, you have to really know the fight and what's coming, so that you can spread atonement and heal people. And if you screw up, right? If you miss your window, you're done. Because people are going to die. In my mind, the shield block is much like that. It's like, if you really know the fight, if you know those key abilities, right, that you have to get through, and you know the frequency, maybe they're coming in from that boss, what a powerful, rewarding ability this is. But the risk, brother.
Yeah.
The risk.
Can you imagine missing it by like half a second?
Oh God, if you blow it too early, right? If you blow the shield block and the boss winds up with a 3-second cast, right? And you blow it at the beginning of the cast, you're done.
You're done.
Because now you probably not have enough battle points to add any further mitigation.
So here's what's interesting about this is that you kind of so I don't know if you read the last line. Certain shields have the material properties that can reflect magical damage when using it.
Oh.
So this takes Spell Reflect, which is an ability in WoW for warriors, and combines it in to a quick damage reduction cooldown. That's interesting because then you might have a shield in your bag you throw on for casters or like caster bosses for that. It's pretty cool.
Definitely.
The next one here is Wall of Shields. Shield wall? Wall of Shields. Link shields with another. So this is so cool. I've read this before. So link shields with another warrior in your group or raid and incite all enemies in a 12-meter radius to attack both of you. For the duration of Wall of Shields, enemy damage will be mitigated using both warriors' combined resilience. Both warriors will take the same amount of damage per hit after mitigation while the effect lasts 3 battle points.
Oh, wow. Expensive, but so cool.
So cool. Synergy, a reason to have 2 warriors, which other tanks might complain about. But, I mean, in a raid, that's incredible. Yeah.
That's a must in a raid. In a dungeon, man, I'm going to tell you, that's pretty attractive. Like that synergy with having maybe
if you want to run a 2 tank, like have a DPS style warrior. Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Now it says link shields. I wonder if that's just terminology, or you both have to have a shield.
So if you, I would imagine you would both have to have a shield, but it might be pull dependent, right? So you're pulling, it's going to be a really tough.
Throw on your tank here.
Here we go. Yeah, put on your shield. Come over here. We're going to kick off Wall of Shield.
That's awesome. And then the last 3 here are pretty standard. Angering blow, strike your enemy in a provoking manner, making them angry. While they are angry, so it's a debuff called anger, I guess. Your attacks generate more hate. And then strike of breaking, fierce, well-placed strike that lowers your enemy's physical mitigation, so you can break their physical. So again, warriors really play well with melee, for sure, and other tanks.
Yeah, and on cooldown, pretty much, I'm thinking that ability.
And it generates a battle point, so it actually looks like when we were kind of looking at the beginning, I was thinking resilience was going to be easy to get. It looks like resilience is going to be more of the battle of keeping up, whereas battle points seem like they're going to happen pretty quickly, which is pretty interesting.
It looks like that to me. It looks like you're going to have your a good supply of them, and then when you use cooldowns, that's when the management of that number of battle points is going to be super important. And then after you come off cooldown, how quickly can you regenerate those points? What rotation do you have set up? You can build them back up pretty quick.
It's really, like you said, think about all these abilities and then 12. So how do you build that out? And how do they play off of each other? What skills are you leaving out? The last one here is called Shoulder Crash. Slam into your enemy with a vicious close quarters attack. If your enemy is at 30% or less health, you will gain the upper hand, restoring some of your resilience and increasing your strength by 20% of your health.
Wow.
So it's like someone's weak, buff yourself up, take it out. That's really cool too, because there's a lot of boss fights where the last portion of it, the last phase, is the hardest phase. And if you're as a warrior, you can buff yourself up a little bit during that. That plays very well to that.
It helps you with that burn phase where you got to burn them at the end. It's just a race, a DPS race to get to the end.
Or when half your group is dead and you're just like, someone keep this warrior up.
And you got 2% left on the boss. And you're like, you got to get him down.
All right, so that wraps up warriors. So my final thoughts. Now have covering all 3. Hayah was really excited about this one. I think this is his favorite. Spoilers. It's really cool. So it's, as someone who's played a warrior in a lot of different games, it's really cool. It's it has the history of warrior in there very well, and they've gone and, in my opinion, created some differences or custom type of situational things that they can do. They make it very unique to Pantheon. So I like the fact that it's familiar yet unique.
I'm going to piggyback off of what you said. I'm having the similar thoughts, and that on one hand, like I mentioned earlier, to me, it's the purest of the tanks, right? So it is. But people might think simple, but no. With war battle banners and battle formations and battle cries, I mean, you have a lot of complexity in this class. So on one hand, it's the purest in my mind of the tanks. It can take an absolute beating. It's not sacrificing complexity.
Yeah, it still has some utility. I thought they'd probably have the least utility, and they might. The Paladin is just decked out with utility. You have a lot of healing from the Dire Lord, so it probably is third in utility, but the utility it has is still really cool. It's not just there. It's not dumbed down because they have all these other things. It does make it a much more interesting warrior class.
Well, it's utility that can and will be used. You know, a lot of times you play tanks in other MMOs, and some of those utility abilities you just never ever use them.
Yeah, you just wait for your other members of your group to do it. Yep.
Yeah, they're not interesting enough. And two, goes back to kind of visionary realms and their vision, if you will, and that is, you know, that people will be wanted, classes will be wanted. People will want that utility in a group. Not everyone will be able to do these kind of things.
Yep. And it's going to change how a fight works. I mean, think about going through with a certain group, going through a dungeon or a raid, and then you have different classes. It's like a different experience. You plan rooms out different. You plan what you're skipping, what you're attacking, how you're pulling. I mean, it's really going to create a lot of life in running something you've run a bunch of times.
If only they would build something in the game where you had little breaks to talk about those differences as you go through the dungeon.
No, you just got to keep killing. If you talk, you lose DPS. Awesome. So that is the warrior. I hope everybody enjoys it. Next week, we're going to be doing a versus battle, which isn't a battle really. I just like to call it that. We're going to talk about 3 things. So if you're someone who's watching the video and you want to comment on our next one, we're going to talk about, first of all, the key things, 1 or 2 key things that each person in the video likes about each tank. We're going to talk about, would you main it or would you alt it? And then we're going to rank all the tanks in our own opinions each. And we are going to have special guests in Battle Axe Theater on for that. So we're going to have Battle Axe Theater on with us. So we're going to, and again, I've been telling people I would love to have it PantheonPlus versus Battle Axe Theater, but I don't agree with Hayah on anything ever. So it might be Battle Axe Theater and minus versus Hayah, which would be fun.
Tag team poor Hayah.
Or it'll turn around completely and it'll be everybody versus me. So we'll see how that goes. It will be fun. Militus, give us, how do we listen to Standing in Fire? How do we get a hold of you? How do we see you guys?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I always love embracing people in the community, and you minus, you've been great about doing that. If people want to check me out, and Boom and Tess, my co-host, every Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Standing in Fire. And that is quite a good definition for the way we play games. So come hang out with us, have a beer, chat with us. You can catch us there. Yeah, Twitch TV/Standing in Fire. Or if you want the one-stop shop to find all things Pantheon, I would head to PantheonPlus, which you can find our information there too.
Yeah, and we're already starting on what I'd like to call beta phase 2. So it's some site enhancements to make content even easier to see. You know, we're gonna constantly do that as the site continues to grow. And I know I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself. You just tell me, but I think you guys are also starting to get a YouTube page up and running.
We are. Yeah, we're starting a YouTube page. We're on Twitter as well.
So we got to get these guys some follows and some subs on YouTube. As soon as that's up and running, we'll get it linked out. We'll tweet it out. But you also then be able to see them in a player right on the site, or go right to their channel and comment and thumbs up and all that. So we'll definitely get that out there soon because you guys are going to love that. That's a lot of fun. So from me, he did it for me, so thank you, Militus. But check out Pantheon.Plus for all the new updates on a lot of the greatest content creators within the Pantheon community, as well as the noobs that are me and Hayah and some of the content we put out. And be part of the conversation on Twitter. Also within our comment sections. You don't need to sign up to be a part of Pantheon.Plus. It's just for commenting, so we don't have bots everywhere. So sign up if you want to comment on the different videos and be part of the conversation. And if you're someone who wants to submit content, contact us right on the website. Let us know what you want to do, how you'd like to do it, and we'll be there to help you out. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Militus, you were literally standing in fire last night, and then I threw you into the fire tonight. So thank you for coming around.
All I know is I can't live to Hayah, but I really appreciate you inviting me on, and I always love to watch your videos. So come back, Hayah, and take it to death next week, because I'm expecting blood between the three of you next week. So
I'm nervous.
I can't wait to watch.
I'm just going to be sitting here quiet, like, I'm sorry, Dev. Guys, thank you so much. Again, check us out on Pantheon.Plus. Follow us on Twitter at PantheonPlus.